Hello and welcome to Salisbury and Sweetnam Sports Podcast. It's been a while since I've been on the podcast due to various things like a holiday to Tenerife. However, I am back and I'm trying to avoid an ill-ridden James. So I'm going to try and avoid his disease for the duration of this podcast. Welcome aboard, James.
Hello, Adam. Well, I'm carrying a bit of a cold today, so apologies for the voice if that's coming through. But of course, I'm going to soldier on like a true podcaster. Anyway, so you've been skiving, for lack of a better term, over the last few weeks in Tenerife. I've heard a few of the stories, some of which are a bit too crude to discuss on the podcast. But is there anything you can tell us about the holiday that you've just had?
Not particularly, other than there was a lot of... Bloody hell, just absolutely jumped out of my seat there as a hound started barking away at me. James's dog can be a troublesome mutt at times. However, yes, holiday, no, there's a lot of alcohol, a lot of sand, and a lot of sea. So yeah, a terrific time had by all.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, I've got a bit of a sad announcement to make, and I'm going to do it live right here on the podcast. After a 2-year period, it's finally time for me to hang up the Hoover. My time as a cleaner is coming to an end.
Yeah, that is awfully sad. It's something I had to do a couple of months ago now. But yeah, a really emotional time in your life, I imagine.
Yeah. Anyway, so moving on to the world of boxing, I'm going to kick it off with the World Boxing Super Series. The Cruiserweight Divisions tournament finally came to an end. It's been an exceptional one, to say the least.
Absolutely has, yes. It's a breath of fresh air to the sport and a real worthy winner.
Yeah. Alexander Usyk defeated Murat Gassiev to claim every single belt in the division, alongside the inaugural Muhammad Ali Trophy. Usyk won the world title a couple of years back in Poland, travelled to defend it in America, entered this tournament, defended in Germany, followed by Latvia, and finally went into Moscow in Russia to win the tournament. He schooled Murat Gassiev absolutely comprehensively, won every single round. His jab, his movement, his footwork, he was really tremendous, and we could be looking at the best cruiserweight of all time right now. So the other option really for Alexander right now, if he was to stay at the cruiserweight division, is a little man called Tony Bellew. And I know that you've been vocal on social media about your opinion on that fight.
I haven't necessarily been vocal. I just laughed at when Tony Bellew suggested that Usyk would be relatively light work for Bellew. I personally think that Usyk is an exceedingly talented man and would have relatively little problem brushing aside the bomber from Liverpool. However, Usyk has got such low mileage on the clock. Tony Bellew got slightly more experience. However, Usyk would have no real problem, as far as I'm concerned.
Right, fair enough. So, as that tournament comes to an end, we need to bring in Season 2. So, we have this draw gala in Moscow. It's like a film premiere. It's absolutely fantastic. And all the best fighters in the world come together to pick each other for the next season's tournament. So, we had the draft. These are the matchups for the first set of quarterfinals. First of all, in the bantamweight division, we kick off with Ryan Burnett, the slickster from Northern Ireland, trained by Adam Booth, the Britain's only world champion represented in the bantamweight division, and he's taking on 4-weight world champion Nonito Donaire in the opening contest. Now, Nonito's a man who lost last time out to Colframpton, so it was a difficult one whether he should really be in this tournament. I never really expected him to be. He's a legend, but he is slightly on the slide. But for me, in terms of business and bringing eyeballs to the competition, it's a fantastic move, as he still really is a superstar, isn't he?
You won't find a boxing fan who does not like Nonito Donaire. So from that perspective, yes, a good move. Ryan Burnett shouldn't have any problem whatsoever in defeating him, though.
I think Burnett will win relatively comfortably and advance his way towards the semi-final. So in the other side of that bracket, we have the number 3 seed, the southpaw from South Africa, Zolani Tete, the man who holds the record for the quickest knockout in world title history. And he's taken on Russian Mikhail Aloyin. And for those who don't know much about him, he's only 4-0. The Russians are having a hell of a lot of influence on this year's series. But he is an ex-world champion in the amateurs. But unfortunately, and it's something we don't like on the show, he's dabbled in the substance. So I think we're all hoping that Zolani Tete can spark that drug cheat out.
Absolutely, and I think he will.
Secondly, did you see Zolani Tete's suit at the gala?
No.
Luke, can you try and find that? Because it was one of the coolest suits I have ever seen. See if you can Google that for me, Luke. And get in the background, because you need to see this, because it really was cool. Anyway, moving on to the third matchup, the Japanese monster Naoya Inoue, the man who defeated Jamie McDonnell in Japan in just under a round. He's now a freeweight world champion in just under 15 fights. I believe he's your pick to win the whole competition. He's taking on ex-world champion Juan Payano. Why are you backing Naoya Inoue?
I think Inoue is an absolute powerhouse for the division. Hits exceedingly hard, and I honestly can't see anybody in the bantamweight World Boxing Super Series going the full 12 rounds with Inoue, because I think he'll knock them all out.
The final matchup, we have the IBF World Champion from Puerto Rico, Emmanuel Rodriguez. Now, he was relatively unknown until March. He came across the pond and defeated Paul Butler emphatically. Looked absolutely sensational. Play with Paul. Put him down a couple of times. He might be the dark horse of this tournament because we're not entirely sure how good this man really can be. But he's taking on a good young prospect from Australia in Jason Maloney. A guy who seems really, really nice, really well grounded, and quite a decent little fighter as well. He's coming off a victory over Kohei Kono, an ex-world title challenger. He's confident. He's looking good. But do you think Emmanuel could be the sleeping giant in this division?
Absolutely, he could be, but we ought not to forget that Paul Butler was going through a tough time at that point. So that performance might have flattered Emmanuel. So for that reason, maybe the form doesn't read quite as well, but it was a great performance, and who knows, he could well be a dark horse.
Yeah, so for me, this tournament is absolutely sensational. We have some of the very, very, very best in the division. 4 absolute monsters. Hypothetically, the semi-finals we could end up with could be Ryan Burnett versus Zolani Tete, Naoya Inoue versus Emmanuel Rodriguez, if all the favourites go through. And that's basically a wet dream for boxing fans.
Absolutely. Very sexual.
Indeed, indeed. And if anyone sees that suit that Zolani was wearing, I think he could pull any woman of his choosing. I really, really do. So anyway, moving on to the super lightweights, we have maybe not quite as good a tournament, but still a really good one. We've got Kirill Relic, the world champion. He's going to be taking on Edward Troyanovsky. For me, Kirill, a decent fighter, really hard. He's lost a couple times at world level, but he's finally crossed the line and become a world champion. So it's good to see him in this tournament, and I think he'll defeat Edward Troyanovsky in that particular matchup. Then we've got the vacant IBF World Championship. That'll be taken between Barincek and Anthony Can You Dig It Yigit from Sweden, with one of the all-time great nicknames. Should be a relatively entertaining contest, that, a relatively 50-50. Barincek, a bit of a powerhouse, bit of a steamer. But Yigit, quite a well intellectual fighter, knows his way around a boxing ring, could pick Barincek off and take advantage of the mistakes that he makes. Now moving on to the slightly more interesting matchups from a British standpoint. Of course, we've always been huge fans of Terry Flanagan on the show. Unfortunately, he lost against Maurice Hooker not too long ago. But what does this say about Terry Flanagan's character that he's willing to step right back in amongst the elite?
Oh, it's great for Terry. It's a great opportunity for Turbo. I really do, because ultimately, if he wants to get back onto that world level, and there's no much better way than doing that than joining the Super Series. So I think it's a great opportunity and great for Terry.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a nightmare draw, though, in Regis Prograis, who's currently the tournament favourite. He's an absolute monster. In his last fight, he drilled Julius Ndongo, the ex-Unified champion, in just under 2 rounds. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Terry. I imagine he'll probably have to travel to the States for it, but I still believe in Terry. I still believe he's got a bit about him, and I believe with a slightly shorter opponent, he'll be able to use his size to bully Prograis. So I think he's got a real chance, and I don't like people underestimating him. And the final quarter-final is Josh Taylor versus Ryan Martin. Ryan, a good amateur, good man for the United States of America, but I think Josh is a little bit special. He's my pick for the tournament, and I think he'll beat Ryan Martin with relative ease. So then we look towards last week very briefly. Manny Pacquiao, the legend, he returned. He took on Lucas Matthysse, and he was able to roll down the years and collected his first stoppage since 2009. Now, he's been in a bit of controversy here because there wasn't any testing out in Malaysia where Manny was. People are wondering, was he on the substance again? Was he dabbling? Juice found it slightly suspicious that Manny was able to roll back the years so well after coming off that loss to Jeff Horn last year.
It was a terrific performance from Manny Pacquiao. He really did roll back the years. But for me, I'd like to trust Manny Pacquiao. A man, obviously, who's involved in his politics. I'd like to think he wouldn't go back to dabbling. And therefore, I believe Manny Pacquiao was clean for this fight.
Yeah, with regret, the size of his back, the size of his head, and the way he was moving, you have to suspect. That's my opinion. I like Manny, he's been a legend of the sport, but not many men move like that at the age of 40 years of age. But anyway, that's that. He's back. He's a world champion again, and fights with the likes of Amir Khan could be in the future for him. Well done to Rocky Fielding, who flew out to Germany and became world champion against Tyron Zeuger. He's, of course, trained by Jamie Moore. And I know you really, really rate Jamie as a trainer. And now he's got his first world champion. So that's fantastic for the stable. Now moving on to our last big boxing topic of the day. We've debated quite a few times whether Eddie Hearn can really tear the world of boxing apart in the United States of America with the DAZN platform that he's got. He announced the first few signings, so we're going to go through them very briefly. Ex-2-weight world champion Jesse Vargas. Demetrius Andrade, another two-time world champion. Danny Roman, the current bantamweight champion. Maurice Hooker, the man who just defeated Terry Flanagan. Who, believe it or not, have you heard the recent story surrounding Maurice?
He got arrested, didn't he?
He got arrested the other week for DUI. He was absolutely off his tits on the alcohol. Crashed his car into a police car. Then drove off and managed to crash into another police car and then swerved, and I believe there was another collision between two separate police cars. So yeah, luckily he's a millionaire, so he should be able to brush that aside.
Yeah, it's like something out of Grand Theft Auto.
It really is. Also, side note on Maurice Hooker, I don't know if you know this, but the man has 8 children at the age of 28.
Extremely fertile sperm.
Yeah, probably the main reason he didn't want to enter the World Boxing Super Series because he's got so many kids to look after on that particular side of the pond that he just can't quite manage to make the trip abroad.
Maybe. Perhaps.
Must be tough work for him. But anyway, yeah, we move on to Artur Beterbiev, the Russian, the IBF world champion. He's going to be taking on Callum Johnson in the first Eddie Hearn DAZN show. And then we've got big baby Jarrell Miller, a brash heavyweight from Brooklyn. Did you see his collision with Anthony Joshua on the stage?
I didn't know.
No, they kicked off at each other. Jarrell was calling him an English muffin, something like that. And Anthony Joshua was threatening to bitch slap him on the stage.
Sounds like real hard banter.
Yeah, real hard banter indeed. It's nice to see Anthony opening his mouth a little bit, though, because we know he comes from that sort of London gangster background, but he likes to not show that. So
no, we all know that AJ is a man of the people and only does it for the fans and all that. So well done to AJ. Yeah, so you're my hero.
Final topic, Liam Smith travelled out to Las Vegas to take on Jaime Munguia. He put up an extremely valiant effort. Jaime was seen as a bit of a beast after his demolition job over Saddam Ali inside just 3 rounds. But I felt, Saddam Ali was chinny at welterweight, and I think he got Miguel Cotto at the right time. So it wasn't that big a win for me. So I really did feel Liam Smith had a chance. He won quite a few rounds, although the judges' scorecards didn't say that out in Vegas. But yeah, Liam put in a hell of an effort and came close at points. The only issue was that he couldn't quite hurt Jaime Munguia. Jamie's a massive guy, and the power just couldn't quite put a dent in him. And for a lad of 21 years of age, to put on that much of an onslaught and not gas, I thought was really impressive. So, good superstar for the future. And there's a few Brits, the likes of Liam Williams and Kell Brook, who I'm sure will be keen for that test in the not-too-distant future. And we've also got the absolute super fight this weekend, live on Sky Box Office. We've got Dirty Dillian Whyte versus Joseph Parker. A real good heavyweight collision. The UK versus New Zealand. Who needs this more?
Yes, it's a great fight, but I'd be hesitant to call it a super fight. I think you're just playing to Eddie Hearn's ego there, really. You really love Eddie Hearn in this day.
Really rate Eddie Hearn?
But yeah, I think it's a cracking fight. And purely on location, I'm gonna go White.
So, is that because of the crowd or more because of the judges' cards at the end of the bout?
No, it's nothing to do with the crowd. I thought Joseph Parker handled the occasion of the fight against Anthony Joshua impeccably. So no, enough to do with crowd. And for me, I see the fight going the distance. Can't see either man knocking each other out because I think they've both got pretty good jaws, and for that reason, it goes to points. And I can't see White losing on a matchroom card.
So for me, Parker, I've always believed for many a year that Parker's an extremely talented man. In the Anthony Joshua fight, I feel that he lost more than Anthony Joshua won. He didn't go for it in the way he potentially could have, and he let himself down. His last couple of fights, he's not been overly impressive. You know, he fought Razvan Kajano in New Zealand, looked poor. Fought Hughie Fury in Manchester, plodded, scraped through it. Looked good in the Joshua fight in spells, but didn't do enough. So now he really is on sort of last chance saloon without... Well, he's only had one loss, but I feel for British fans, he really does need the win. Now, the issue for him is that he's taken it on short notice. He's not got too much momentum. He's plateaued a bit as a fighter, whereas Dylan White, a year ago, would have massively gone for Parker to win this. However, Dylan has improved so much over the past year. Lucas Brown, say what you like, he didn't come in the best shape in the world, but Dylan looked so impressive that night. His movement looked on point, and now his shoulder's fixed. He's really hitting with venomous power again in that left hook. So it's a tough one to me, but maybe going with momentum, I might agree with you. I might edge towards Dillian White, but I do say it's a 50-50, and I'm not writing Parker off by any stretch of the imagination.
No, yeah, I completely agree with that. If the fight was in New Zealand, I think I'd come to a slightly different conclusion than what I do. But I do honestly say this is a relatively 50-50 fight, a really even fight, and a great main event, I hope. So yeah, quite looking forward to it. Whether I get to watch it is a different matter, because I have got a 25th wedding anniversary due that night.
Well, that sounds absolutely terrible. Is it a family occasion?
No, it's a couple I know through the cricket club, and it's likely to get exceedingly messy.
All right, so it might not be too
I am
bad.
quite looking forward to it, actually.
Might be on.
Well, who knows? Penwitham Golf Club might treat us all to a bit of championship boxing. But yeah, I'll...
Heard they're big fans of Dillian at the cricket club.
Yeah, they are, actually. I'll most likely watch the highlights with regret, but I'm sure I'll be having a cracking night nonetheless.
Then we're going to move down slightly down the card, and we've got one of our two big heavyweight collisions. Now, I absolutely adore Dave Allen. He's a man of the people. We all love him. But to be threatening retirement and to be eating salt and peppercorn chicken a week before a big fight isn't the best preparation possible. I mean, I love sweet and sour chicken, but for a fighter's diet, it's not ideal. He's taken on Nick Webb at British level. Are you slightly worried for Dave this weekend?
I don't think Dave Allen will win the fight, ultimately. And I think he's yet another journeyman on Webb's repertoire.
Yeah, I wouldn't class him as a journeyman, though, because if you look at the level of opposition he's lost to, it is extremely high. And for me, I believe if Dave had a full camp, he'd beat Nick Webb. I truly do. I don't think Nick Webb's anything particularly special. I just feel that with the week's notice, it's a huge ask. But this sort of personifies who Dave Allen is. Will fight anyone, anytime, anywhere. So really, really am behind him. I hope he gets the job done this weekend. And I believe he'll be coming out to Sexy Boy, which of course was the anthem of the great Shawn Michaels. So how can you not get behind Dave Allen?
So I hope that's our outro today.
It is our outro, don't worry. I plan these things.
Just a sexy boy. Sexy boy.
No.
I'm not your boy toy.
And you're not the boy toy of Katie Taylor either, as she defends her world title against Kimberly Connor. Yet another fight for Katie against somebody she should walk through. I'm getting a bit bored of the whole Katie Taylor thing now. Her trying to sell it as a big superstar. But for me, in the division, there's not really too many people we want to see. So I sort of feel like this is a relatively non-event for the card.
I'm getting really bored with your ridiculous sort of links between things. Katie Taylor and me being a boy toy of hers is an outrageous comment, and I'm offended.
Well, I believe you'd probably take me and Katie Taylor's boy toy. I don't think it's a particularly bad offer.
I think it is a bad offer. I don't want a woman who likes to punch other women in the face.
Alright, okay. We know who you are.
Yeah, a very peaceful pacifist.
Okay, so then we move on to the big one on the undercard. Del Boy Derek Chisora taking on Carlos Takam. These two men, they're not the elite of the division, but they're in and around that top 15. Maybe Takam squeezes into the top 10. Good operators, both like to go forward, both like to scrap, both will fight anyone. I edge towards Takam. Who are you going with?
I think it's a terrific fight for both men. And I think it will be a war, actually. I think it'll go the distance, and they'll both be extremely cut up. I'm going Takam.
You're going Takam. It's a shame, because you never really know what Derek Chisora's got to turn up. If he turns up like the Dillian Whyte fight, where he's throwing tables and biting Dillian Whyte in the studio, and he's got a little bit of motivation, it can be a very, very, very good contest. But I sort of see Carlos as a narrow favourite. Also, we've got Conor Benn in the rematch against Cedric Paynow in that fight where he went down twice. Really good fight, and that will be a great way to cap off the card. So moving on to the football, absolute heartbreak for the English as we crashed out in the semi-finals against Croatia. Was this a successful campaign or not?
I've only just started to get over this. I was utterly convinced that with this thriving squad and a manager that has brought the national football team into the hearts of the nation again, I honestly thought we were going to go on and absolutely win the World Cup at a canter, but it wasn't to be. We breezed through the group stage. We had the luxury of dropping players to go through this relatively easier route. We breezed past Sweden, won on penalties against Colombia in what was an epic, and then unfortunately fell short against Croatia. For me, yes, it's a success. 1990 was the last time we got to the semi-final of the World Cup, so it's relatively unprecedented in the lives of Britons who are relatively young, like us two, James. So yes, it's a success from that point. You could argue we haven't beat anyone, completely agree. However, to get the nation behind the boys once more overweighs that for me. We've got to this semi-final, which for me is a fantastic achievement, and I for one can't wait to watch England play football again.
And that's tremendous, because you started the tournament not really wanting to watch England too much. I know you said you thought they'd win it, but you went on and on about, the sort of heartbreak we've had over the last few years. So it's good that they've reinstalled your confidence and enjoyment in the national side, which has potentially faded over the past few years. But anyway, unfortunately, moving away from our heartbreak, there was a final. It was France. It was Croatia. Good match. France came out the victors, and they are the best team in the world.
Ultimately, it was a terrific World Cup. One that I've thoroughly enjoyed, watching Germany get knocked out so early, watching other big nations like Spain defeating on penalties to Russia. Russia's great run in the tournament, and for me that's a bit suspect as well. Has Putin got in the ears of the officials and said, if you don't give relatively dodgy decisions, I'm gonna have you dead.
And let these men take these drugs.
No, yeah, absolutely another potential alternative. Yeah, but yeah, a terrific World Cup, and France were worthy winners. They left a lot to be desired for me in the group stage. They scraped past Australia and weren't brilliant against many other teams, but they came into their own, I felt, in the semi-final against Belgium, when they effectively controlled that game from start to finish and ran out comfortable winners. And that's when I got slightly worried for England, whether they could defeat France in the final if they got through Croatia, but we didn't have to overcome that hurdle. But yeah, France worthy winners, and Croatia were valiant and defeat. A terrific achievement for a nation with just 4 million people.
Yeah, I was actually speaking to two French lads the other week, actually, and they were telling me that it was indeed going to France. I told them it was coming home, and it ended up being me who was wrong. So I'm very devastated about that, but I'm assuming that those two French lads will be overjoyed that football came to their country for the first time since 1998.
Spot on, when they hosted the World Cup. And what a terrific side they had then.
Yeah. So anyway, we move away from the World Cup and look at one of the biggest stars in the sport, and that's Cristiano Ronaldo. He's moved on to pastures new, and he's massively mugged off Manchester United. He's used us for years upon years upon years to get better contracts, and when he finally chooses to leave, he goes to Juventus for 80-something million. Big signing for Juve, and I assume he will tear up Serie A.
Yeah, a price tag of 105 million euros, which is obviously a large price tag. However, well, for a man of his age, it's massive, but a real talented man, of course, is Cristiano Ronaldo. He's on just under €2 a second at Juventus, so there's a reason why he's gone to Juventus. It's obviously a massive club, and he's on a lot of money, so good luck to him. Yes, you'd expect him to tear up Serie A. A man of his capabilities, in my opinion, the best player on the planet. I wish Ronaldo all the best. It's a story that slightly passed me by, really. It was the last day in Tenerife that he got announced, and the World Cup was still on, so it was one of those where I didn't pay too much attention to it. But it is an absolutely huge transfer. Likewise, he's Gigi Buffon to Paris Saint-Germain, probably his retirement home, like it was for David Beckham. So, yeah.
It's a shame, actually, because maybe this could have been their Champions League year for Buffon, who's never actually won that competition, won everything else. But then we look at, as you said, you mentioned Ronaldo, apparently the best player in the world, according to yourself. And I'm going to agree. I actually do think that Messi's the more naturally gifted, but in terms of legacy, I think Cristiano knocks him out the park. You know, he's got that international championship under his belt, and he's now done it in 3 leagues, not just one, for Lionel Messi. So yeah, for me, Ronaldo, potentially the greatest of all time.
Yeah, potentially one of the greatest of all time. Yeah, there's a lot of other scintillating players over the years. So yeah.
Well, there really is. But anyway, moving on to the UFC. And we're a bit late on this, but UFC 226, we had a fantastic main event. Stipe Miocic, the heavyweight champion, the most successful in history, defending against Daniel Cormier, the light heavyweight champion. And I told you all those months ago that this was not a mismatch. DC is a fully fledged heavyweight, and he won the contest in absolutely explosive fashion. Stipe Miocic started very well indeed, dominated early, seemed to outstrength Daniel upon the cage, landed a few decent shots. But DC always likes to take a look at his opponent before he starts going. And when DC started landing those hands, Stipe felt them right from the very first shot. And DC said he noticed, watching tape of Stipe Miocic, that when he leaves the clinch, he always leaves his hands down. DC took advantage of this, landed a right hook, which put Stipe down. DC ran in and finished the job. So Daniel Cormier is now the heavyweight champion of the world. And some people are saying that he's the greatest of all time, you know, with John Jones failing the drug tests. I'm potentially on board with that in terms of when you look at, you know, a lot of the greats have failed for steroids. DC, man, he's always been clean, and he's now a world champion in 2 divisions. People forget that he was unbeaten at heavyweight before he stepped down for light heavyweight due to issues in the camp with his friend Cain Velasquez operating at heavyweight. But now DC isn't cutting all that weight. He isn't draining himself, so now he can be the very best version of himself. And I'm going to say if he fought John Jones tomorrow, I believe he could get the victory. But he's not fighting John Jones tomorrow. He's got arguably an even bigger fight. He stepped to the octagon, he said, there's a man in the crowd. He's a wrestler. He's an all-American American. He never thought he'd get the opportunity to fight him. But Brock Lesnar, get in here. And Brock Lesnar answered the call. He walked in the octagon, shoved DC across. The two went back and forth. That fight's going to happen. Brock, one of the biggest draws in UFC history. This fight is massive. And Adam, is this one that potentially even you could get excited for? Absolutely,
yeah. It's one that I might even record and watch the morning after the fight. It was all extremely sort of a WWE-esque what took place. But I suppose it'll get pay-per-views for those in America and viewers over here. So yeah,
I see it probably doing 1 million plus. In terms of the actual fight, despite it being very WWE, you know, if Stipe had won, they would have done the Brock fight. But Stipe, although I think he's a great personality, he's not going to give you the back and forth that a Daniel Cormier would. These two really, really will talk this up. Daniel Cormier actually a fan of wrestling, attends the events quite regularly, so he really knows how to sell a fight. In terms of the actual brawl, I see it being a harder fight than people are anticipating. People are saying that Brock's got no chance whatsoever. But what people are forgetting, this man isn't a CM Punk. He's somebody that has a serious background in wrestling, an NCAA champion, and a former UFC champion, so he knows what he's doing. He's a humongous guy. There wasn't much of a size difference between Stipe and DC, but there is one this time round. Brock has to cut to make the heavyweight limit. He'll probably have a 30-40 pound advantage of the night. And that size can give him an opportunity against Daniel Cormier in the wrestling department. But Daniel's also, you know, at a very high standard, being an ex-Olympian, a silver medalist, and the better striker of the two, and of course been a bit more active in recent times. But, you know, Brock's done drugs before. It's been swept under the carpet before. He gets to do whatever he wants. He tells Dana White what to do. He tells the UFC what he wants, and they do it for him. He's that big a name. So all the substance will be in his system, but ultimately, if I'm making a pick, I'm going to go with my man on this one. I'm going to say that Daniel Cormier wins the fight, and he wins it not really comprehensively. I think it'll be tougher than people think, but I think he wins it, and I think he wins it well. So then we move on to the co-main. Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis. These two men, absolutely massive. Two of the biggest punches in UFC history. And you'd think that would make for an incredible fight. It didn't. It made for one of the worst fights in UFC history. The second lowest amount of punches ever thrown in a UFC fight. Francis Ngannou, obviously, incredibly emotionally distraught after the Stipe Miocic fight. You know, he was on cloud nine. Everyone was hyping him up that he was going to be the next Mike Tyson, the next killer in the division. But, you know, that hype doesn't always help you out. When you fight at the elite level, you can be exposed, which is what happened to Francis Ngannou. He seemed a bit apprehensive. He couldn't bring himself to throw. And Derek won an extremely boring decision. Now we move on to probably the biggest UFC news in recent times. Brendan Schaub, for those who don't know him, is a pundit. He's an ex-UFC fighter. I think he went 6-5 in the UFC. He wasn't that good. He wasn't one of the elite. But he's managed to make an incredible career for himself outside of fight sports. You know, he's got successful podcasts. I think he's got 2 now. One with Brian Callen, who's a comedian, and one for himself where he works for Showtime. He does a lot of punditry work for boxing. And he's also a successful comedian who shows up venues all over the world. But he's never had a close relationship with Dana White, and that really kicked off over the course of the week. So Brendan made a few comments about kickboxers not always being able to transfer their striking style into the UFC. So Dana White posted a post to a kickboxer. He was offended by this. He said, you know, what does Schaub know? He went 6-5 in the UFC. He has no idea what he's doing. Don't take no notice of him. So Brendan doesn't take this particularly well. Yeah, don't listen to me. Listen to the man who's fat and has never had a fight in his life. Stop folding Ronda Rousey's laundry, was his response. Kept it relatively calm, nothing massive. Dana responds, he's successful. As soon as Joe Rogan stops carrying you, you will disappear. So, of course, Brendan's gone absolutely ballistic at this, and he's posted a huge post. He said, this is hilarious. Yes, Joe Rogan, one of my best friends, has played a significant role in my post-fight career, no doubt. You're right about that. But I've got 2 TV shows, sold out worldwide comedy tours, 2 successful podcasts, and just bought my first major movie role. Super grateful, however. If it weren't for the Fertitas loaning your ass millions of dollars to invest into an idea that wasn't even yours in the first place, you wouldn't be shit. How does it feel to know that once the real businessmen left, the UFC has been a shell of itself? You're at the forefront. You've tried it all. CM Punk begging Brock Lesnar to come back and praying for a night for a Connor text. Tough job to do without Lorenzo holding your hand, making sure you don't mess it all. Can't feel good. You'd be a cardio kickboxing coach in Boston in your late 40s, hoping to grab a ticket to my comedy show if Lorenzo Fertitta didn't help you. So a decent onslaught, but then he finishes it very big indeed. Also, this is no way Eskimo brothers should talk to each other. And Adam, do you know what an Eskimo brother is?
I don't have a clue.
An Eskimo brother is Eskimo brothers are 2 men who've had sex with the same woman. Brendan Schaub's ex-girlfriend is Rowdy Ronda Rousey, revealing that Dana White has been having intercourse with his employees. Now that never works in a workplace.
Right.
Say something else.
I honestly do not know what to say after that. That was an extremely long post. One of the longest I've ever seen.
Well, ultimately, it's not particularly good for business if people know that Dana White's been having intercourse with employees. It's never good to be doing that. I know in the cleanest industry, that never works in a workplace.
I just think that it happens in any workplace.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be shagging your employees when you're the boss, is the basic point here.
I'm inclined to agree.
So yeah, UFC Calgary this weekend, the rematch between Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier should be a good one. They went to war last time. Bit of unfinished business there, so that should be good. UFC 227 taking place in 2 weeks' time, but we're not doing a podcast next week, so I'll briefly go over it now. TJ Dillashaw, the slightly superior fight IQ. Cody Garbrandt can take you on at any point, but I believe that TJ's figured him out and will probably beat him again. Demetrius Johnson defends his flyweight title against Henry Cejudo. Not much to say about this. Demetrius Johnson won very comfortably first time round. He's not the pay-per-view draw because he's not willing to fight anybody. So that's that. Adam, do you have anything to say on the darts, on the match play?
For me, the winner of the match play is Michael Smith.
And why is that?
Because he has improved massively. He got his first World Series win just a couple of weeks ago. He scores too heavily on his day for some, and I think he will win in what is a favourable format for him. So good luck. Also, men who will go far in this year's competition, in my opinion: Adrian Lewis, James Wade, Gary Anderson.
Yeah, and were you slightly surprised that DAZN defeated Michael Van Gerwen yet again?
So of course you're surprised. Jeffrey DAZN at 12-1 to defeat Mighty Mike. However, he scores heavily DAZN. He's defeated MVG before. So if you're into that form, then it's not too much of a shock. And I think he's a really talented man. He's Jeffrey DAZN. Great to watch. Maximum hitter. Maximum entertainment.
Yeah. So in closing, we've not done this for a very long time, but Love Island, and for me, the
Whoa.
How far behind are you?
I've not watched last night's.
Right, so I won't mention what happened last night. There wasn't anything too major. But yeah.
Other than people getting dumped off the island.
Yeah, but I think it's very, very obvious who was dumped off the island.
I don't want to know.
I think you do know already. But, yeah, do you want me to tell you exactly why I think it's gone on too long?
Go on.
I've actually found myself warming to Laura. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I couldn't stand her earlier in the competition.
As you don't mind Laura, I think she's been extremely unlucky in love.
Yeah, I feel like this poor fella is the right sort of age for her. You know, she's been going for the toy boys. But Paul, a man who's had the experience with women in his time, you know, he's even dabbled with Britney Spears. But now he's in a position where he needs to calm down. He's a happy carpenter, and hopefully they can buy a house together in Scotland.
Absolutely. I wish them all the best, because I really like Laura. Yeah. She's a lovely person.
There's not much to talk about. It's a bit stagnated. Jack and Danny absolutely walking the competition for me.
So where have all the challenges gone? Like lie detectors.
That's tonight.
All right, and like tweets that they've written previously about controversial things. I want that. That's what keeps me entertained. Yeah. I also want a lot of sex. There's no sex in this year's show.
Oh, there was a hell of a lot of sex last night.
I don't want to know.
I'm just going to say one thing.
Stop.
If I was Megan's dad, I'd be in absolute tears at what went on yesterday.
Right.
Absolute tears. But anyway, yeah, so you mentioned mean tweets the other day. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see Charlotte Crosby's tweet about Alex the other day?
No.
She went ballistic at him, you know, going on about his sunburn, calling him vile pink face and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, there's no need for that.
Very horrible.
I'm a big fan of Charlotte Crosby as well, so it's a bit harsh.
Yeah, I knew you were. So she tweeted this, which has caused a kick-off with Alex's family. So Alex has called her a bully. Alex's family called her a bully and all that. So people have risen to the defence of Dr. Alex, the Doctor of Love. And Charlotte's now posted some videos on Instagram of her crying, saying that, you know, you told me not to bully Alex, but now you've caused me to get bullied, and cried. But really, you know, it's tough to feel sorry for Charlotte at all when she was putting very mean things about Alex on social media.
Nicknames are bad names.
Yep. Thank you for the...
A fantastic Office quote. Really gets me every time.
Yeah, it just felt very primary school. Anyway, yeah, so that's basically about it. I don't think there's too much to talk about in the Love Island Villa. I think we're getting towards that final week now. Jack and Danny are walking the competition. So there's not too much to discuss, really.
No.
So, yeah, good luck to Dave Allen this weekend. Hopefully, you know, he's worked in the gym today. He's got all the salt and peppercorn chicken weight off. We hope he beats Nick Webb. So to play us out, it's a bit of sexy boy. We love you, Shawn Michaels.
Rest in peace, Shawn Michaels.
He's not dead. He's alive with soul.
I think I'm cute. I know I'm sexy. I've got the look that drives a girl wild. I've got the move that really move. I said chill up and down their spine. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a I make them feel like they're on cloud nine. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy.